recording?
Are we live?
Well, the three of us are, but the podcast isn't.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah, man. You going to get us kicked off?
We're kicking off. That doesn't the band sound good this morning?
Yeah, they're always right on tune, man.
You know, and we haven't thanked Maggie O'Doyle. She's our announcer who says, this is Hase&Fletch.
Is that who it is?
Maggie, great job. Just fantastic job. But
I don't think I know Maggie. Have we had the opportunity?
Oh yeah, she's the one who's doing all of the
Okay,
recording.
very good.
And you're mansplaining. Is that what it is? How do you call it when you're sitting like this? Or
spreading.
And I'm kind of doing the feminine leg cross here.
Yeah,
we're okay with that, but don't touch me.
You're safe, man.
Yeah, we're safe. Hey, good morning.
Good morning, bro.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm good. Had a good week.
Yeah. What'd you listen to this morning?
My wife, actually, she's out of town, and she called me this morning knowing that I would be driving in.
Yeah.
And so I spoke with my wife this morning. No podcast this morning.
I heard the Eagles are doing a concert series at the Sphere in Las Vegas. You know what that is?
I do.
You know the Sphere?
I do.
I've not been there, but
they're going to do a September, October, and that's why I was listening to the Eagles this morning. And they're going to do a deal at the Sphere where they're residents, where they do
like nightly shows or something?
Nightly shows at the Sphere.
Wow.
Starting in September, and I'm thinking I got to be there for that.
Really?
But it's not the Eagles like it used to be. It's
well, some of them are gone.
Some of them are dead, and they've got some other ones that rolled in. But anyway, should be.
I mean, are you an Eagles guy?
Huge
Eagles fan.
Yeah.
As you are you?
I love the Eagles, the old Eagles, the original Eagles. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the original ones just once in Omaha, but it's other two times they've been here with Deegan. Fry. I've seen them both. And
they got the country guy that fills in
Vince
for
Gill.
Vince Gill,
Vince Gill, right.
Yeah, I still found it quite enjoyable. But my daughter went to the Sphere, and she really said it was something else. Yeah,
really.
I prescribed to the Big Lebowski. Oh man, turn it off! It's the Eagles. That's more my my approach.
Turn it off?
Yeah, I'm not an Eagles guy. Do you remember when
you're not
in the Big Lebowski? He says, "Oh, dude, man, change the channel," and the guy pulls over and throws him out of the cab. Personally, I'm not an Eagles guy. Really? I admit they're incredible and talented, and their catalog is amazing. Yeah. But I'm just not.
Anyway, today is Flag Day.
It is Flag Day.
Yeah, and you are representing.
I am representing, man.
And we need to maybe introduce our guest at some point, too.
Yeah, let's do that.
But, okay, folks.
You want to do that?
Sure. We've got a very special guest today. Dr. Mark Jones is with us. He is currently the VP at North Point Recovery in Omaha. They provide all sorts of behavioral health care, from substance, behavioral, mental health,
Yep, that's the realm. Yeah,
that's the realm.
Addictions and mental health, what we call co-occurring disorders.
Okay.
Yep.
Prior to North Point, Dr. J, which is what I'm going to call him, was the General Director of Health Medical Services at Union Pacific.
Correct.
That was a really interesting
job.
Something like 30,000 employees there.
Well, it started out, when I started, we had 52. But by the time I ended, we had 32. So
were you just?
So they're
some of them weren't fit
Nothing
to work
to do
or
with
what?
me. Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say, man.
He was a clinical director of behavioral health at Boys Town. By the way, side note, story. This always scares Fletch when I do these stories, but our youngest was acting out. He was maybe 5. Being a 5-year-old. And my wife, Jane, said, you know what? You keep this up. And we were driving. She said, you keep this up, I'm just going to take you right to Boys Town. And, he kept doing some things. And so she pulled over at Boys Town at the statue where it's like, he ain't heavy, he's my brother.
Yep.
Tosses him out of the car, puts him right at the statue, and leaves. Well, he was terrified. She goes around the block and comes around and picks him up. But he tells that story just like, that was life-changing.
The abandonment story.
I think Dr. Jones, Dr. J would say that's probably not the way to handle things.
CPS is still coming after you for that one.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Yeah, can't do that now.
So he has a bachelor's from Creighton, master's from Kansas, and he has a doctorate from This Is the Year University, the University of Nebraska at Lincoln.
Correct.
This is the year.
Because this is the year. We are going to win it all this year. But welcome. Thanks. Our massive audience, mainly interested in stuff that's going on with baby boomers and retirement and nutrition and health and having a positive life. And so we're happy Dr. J can be here.
Always.
Maybe kind of kick it off if you want to add anything to your background, but also maybe start tying that into what, this is all about with what we're trying to do for our audience and, help us maybe bridge that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think there's so many different ways you can take that conversation. And I think as we grow older, we get really contemplative and reflective of decisions we've made. Regret can become a part of that, a lot of wonderment and amusement in terms of what if I'd have taken a different path? What would have happened? Career, partners, geographic location. So I think you get to that point where, reflection is a big part of that, and you really kind of start to examine your path. And I think most of us probably come to the conclusion that we did most things right, but there's also this thing we call, our remembering self versus our experiential self, where we kind of filter out all the good and bad memories, right? A lot of people, for a lot of people, for high school was a miserable experience, right? And then others not so much, but they tend not to remember their everyday mood, the kind of the rise and falls with that. They tend to kind of filter out and then make a general statement about like, wow, I couldn't wait to get out of there, or that was a great experience. And so, we look back at all those things, our first jobs, our first loves, all those kind of things, and kind of figure it out. And then I think we, that's kind of the looking back, our remembering selves, where we filter a lot of that, because our minds aren't capable of, remembering every detail in our emotions and our up and down. And then I think we get to the point where we kind of look forward, like in terms of what's next, what gives us meaning.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so interesting, man. I love the idea of reflection and the choices that we've made and how ultimately they've gotten us to the point where we are. I think
seemed like a good idea at the time.
Exactly. And you are certainly making those decisions within the context of the moment, with whatever information you have available, right? I mean, it's easy to critique or criticize decisions that you made in the rears. I mean, when you're looking back, but they've gotten you to where you are. And if you're content, or at least you're somewhat contented, they were probably reasonable decisions. Yeah. It is interesting.
Do you find that people our age, we're kind of collectively in the same group, try to find purpose and meaning more so at our age than maybe, at younger ages?
Well, yes, I think so. But there are also a certain amount of people kind of sadly at this age for a lot of different reasons. And we can talk economics and the shifts and that kind of thing, who are still just searching to survive, right? I mean, like are worried about, Social Security is not going to cover me, and you go, and this is not meant to be disparaging, but you go into, a 7-Eleven or something like that, and you see this 75-year-old guy working there, and maybe he's working because he just wants to engage, but some of that may be like a survival mechanism too, right?
He needs to.
I just got to get up and keep paying the bills and keeping the lights on, so I have enough. So I think there's a segment of society that maybe isn't is in the place to be able to kind of be reflective and forward plan. They're just kind of living moment to moment, and we ought to show a lot of compassion and support for those people, and we need systems and all those kind of things to support them. And then there's folks who have been able to through a lot of different reasons create some kind of comfort of their own, and they can kind of think about like meaning and purpose and how all that fits and what the next step is.
Right.
Right.
That's interesting, man.
Yeah.
That is such an interesting thing. I have been a day-to-day guy, not very strategic. I don't plan. I can remember one of my old bosses, Leanne Meyer, asked me, "What's your 5-year plan, Fletch?" And I was like, if it's morning, I'm thinking about what's for lunch. And if it's afternoon, I'm thinking about what's for dinner.
Yeah.
And that was the extent of my planning. And I've just kind of bo-dodio-doed along and gone where life has taken me. And I'm overjoyed with where it's taken me.
Right.
But I've never been very strategic, and it certainly could have backfired.
Yep.
You know, and so, you know, we talk about this. It comes up a lot, retirement, and we are all in that age group where most people assumed we should be retiring or whatever, but we're driven by something beyond that. And I don't, you know, for the three of us, fortunately, it's probably not financial. It's more purposeful, you know, something that's fulfilling. You know, hopefully, you know, we're all in a position where we potentially could retire, but
it's
I need
a different
that purpose,
conversation.
I need that purpose, you know.
It seems to be a different topic and conversation than it was 25 years ago.
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
And most guys they worked at the factory.
Yep.
And you put in your 40 years and then you retired and you got your pension.
And your lifespan was 67.
And you lived to 67.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's a different animal now even with, you know, the lifespan is now 79. And I know there's a lot of folks too. I kind of fear this too. You know, we've done well, but like, God, am I going to outlive my money? Right. I mean, that's a fear, right?
That is a fair concern.
Yeah.
Please don't put me on life support.
Yes.
You know, I don't want to. Yeah. I want to live a good quality life.
Right.
But, you know, once that's.
I mean, you spent, you played basketball at Creighton.
I did.
So that's big time. And how have you related that to your life and to some of your clients today? I mean, you still do some work with Creighton, correct?
I do.
What have you seen, I guess, at that competitive level from a behavioral and I guess a mental challenge? Because elite athletes have a different perspective on life and on themselves. And so how do you counsel them in this day and age versus, say, what would you say, 10 years ago?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so I think what's different today's athlete is, let's just stay with this sport of basketball for just a second, but I think it applies to everything, is the social pressures have shifted in that they have a trainer, they have, if they're elite, they have already in high school an agent, right? They got parents, they got AAU coaches. So there's so many voices in their head, where before they might have just been, their best relationship was their high school coach. And their high school coach was their mentor and guide, right? And now there are so many people that are in these kids' heads in terms of you should do this, you should do that. And the impact of that on all that is, in my impression, and what I try and balance against, is the idea that it can be so wearing that you have these 17 and 18-year-old kids that basketball or gymnastics or track and field or whatever it is seems like a job, right? And then so you worry about kind of the burnout factor, right? And the fact that it's easy to slip in and just like going through the motions. So the play on the other side of this is, you know, you hear this all the time, but it's, you know, really important is, okay, why I'm in this moment, how do I stay present and perform to the best and be very intentional about what I want to get out of this today? Because really, if I can't be present and intentional now, I'm not maximizing the time I am on the court or on the track or on the football field or softball field or whatever it is. So I worry a lot about so many voices in their heads.
Are the kids driven, or is it their parents?
That's shifted too. A lot of parents, I think, here's what I think drives a lot of parents is the economic anxiety, whether their kids can go to college or not. Right. So like they got to get a scholarship, right? And parents are, it's been 40 years ago since I played, but my dad would have never thought about talking to Coach Apke or Coach Reed. Matter of fact, after Coach Apke recruited me, I don't think they ever had another conversation again.
Is that right?
You know,
he didn't call every week and say how much playing time's Mark
you know, and I think he met Coach Reed once, maybe, you know, for like a half a second, right? But now you have all these parents who are, you know, feel free to call up the coach and you know, and talk about their kid and like try and leverage it, you know.
The physical ability of these athletes and the mental ability of these athletes. Do you make any sort of characterization early on for the program? And I'm going to tie this together like with, okay, by the time then you're 60, because those are two different avenues. And how important is the mental strength of these kids?
Yeah, it's crucial. And I know, you know, coaches recruit to that, and they watch all sorts of things body language, how they interact with other people, how they interact with their parents, how they interact with their coaches, those kind of things. So coaches are always kind of figure out on, do I take a risk on this kid? Is he going to, he or she going to disrupt my culture? Yeah. I know Coach Flannery and Coach McDermott are really cautious about, like, look, he or she may not be the best player we could get, but they're the best culture fit, right? And now, so then to your question, Mark, if they're a great culture fit now when they're 17, 18, 21, they're going to fit into a company later on, right? They're going to be really good. They're going to be good employees. And, if I'm an employer, kind of back to where we're going with this, I want those kind of kids, right? Because they're like they're competitors, right? And now they've already proven that they can fit into a culture and deal with expectations.
Yeah, that's interesting. No doubt, because there have been criticisms at times of not recruiting some of those players that may have more ability, but
have a personal agenda.
But have a personal agenda and might be a little disruptive to the culture. You hear that talk from time to time.
And I started out in my career working with disadvantaged and at-risk kids, and there's also an argument to be made, and a good one, for like, yes, but now let's see if we can't grow that young person, female, like, so let's give them a chance. I know it's not the best. Their situation's not the best, their behavior's not the best, but like, kids deserve a second chance too, right? So there's a little bit of that balance of like, okay, because there's a lot of reasons they end up like that too, right? Or present like that.
People in business would like to know. So I think Creighton probably has, and there's fewer universities that have the approach that we're turning out people that we want to be good citizens, that want to contribute to a business, start a business. And so as an employer, you look at that and say, well, I sort of want that type of person in our company or affiliate with them. But it's tipping over to the point, in my opinion, that these college athletes really, why even go to class anymore?
I know.
I mean, they're going to be getting paid. They got this big settlement. They got this whole thing. And you step back and look at it and say, God, all the rivalries are gone. There's really no meaning to the conferences anymore.
Couldn't agree more.
These kids, I mean, okay, just pay them then. I mean, the fact that they go to school is all of a sudden irrelevant. On the business side of things and in life, you kind of say, well, hold on a sec, wait a minute.
Well, and the other thing is that going to class, the majority of your classes, and Creighton doesn't do this, and I'm very proud of my alma mater for that, but a lot of kids will go to college and never step foot in a classroom. Yeah. I mean, they'll be at, University of Houston, I'm not picking on Houston, or wherever, New Mexico State, and they do everything on frickin' online, right? Which is ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a little bit. We could talk about that on another.
Oh, I think it's fascinating.
Another show, but it's. I think we're really tipping over to where they just aren't. This student athlete thing is kind of comical after a while.
But these are the things that, at our age and point of life that we look back on and we criticize, or we at least we're concerned about, because it's so different than what we experienced.
I know. The topic of our thing is really kind of the. Our generation and how we handle the next stage. So in the 1890s, so there's always been this thing of the older generation looking back at the younger generation and saying they don't get it, right? Which is kind of part of our thing in terms of like, why can't my grandkids look at things the way I do, and my kids, and so on and so forth. And back to your kind of Mark, your original question, and Doug, your original question. But in the 1890s, there was among ministers and community leaders and all those kind of things, there was a huge freak out about the younger generation, the generation of the 1890s. You know what it was? Bicycles. Like serious.
This was going to end civilization. This is going to end civilization.
It was bicycles.
That is
right.
I mean, so like once you get some perspective on, there's always been this kind of push-pull, so the community leaders were freaked about bicycles, like you said, Duggar. It was going to end human civilization as we knew it.
Very true. I mean, you tend to overreact, I suppose, and sometimes I think, man, this stuff's getting away from us, and I feel like it's just putty through my fingers,
It is.
And yet, I think, the pendulum swings pretty violently.
Yeah.
But it somehow lands in the middle.
Our parents thought the Beatles were going to kill us,
Yeah,
right?
Beatles, horrible. horrible.
I thought it was the Eagles, but
Yeah.
So what are you doing? I mean, you're obviously staying in shape, man. You were a high-level athlete. You're staying in shape. What keeps you doing that? What's the mindset of someone who continues to be disciplined, and where does that come from? Fear?
So there's a quote that I recently became familiar with, and I kind of been obsessive enough to live by it before I figured out the quote. So the quote goes is, you don't pick your future, you pick your habits, and your habits pick your future.
Interesting.
Right? Which, that's pretty damn profound.
Is that Aristotle or?
I don't know who the hell that was. I couldn't quote it, but you don't pick your future, you pick your habits, and your habits pick your future. I'm like, wow, that is really something. But I plan my entire day on when I'm going to work out. Like, I'm selfish. This morning I looked at my schedule. I knew I had you guys, but I got an hour at lunch. There's a CrossFit gym 12 seconds from where my office is. Like, I can go there for 45 minutes and be back for 1 o'clock for my meeting. Right.
Oh, cool.
So same thing with I'm traveling. So I never miss a day. So I plan my whole day around when I'm going to work out.
You sound just like Hase.
Yeah.
You pick your hotel based on the nature of their fitness facility. Don't care about the conference rooms and all that crap, the free breakfast.
Right.
Just show me a decent workout facility.
And then I'll look at my schedule the next day and say, better be up at 5:30 a.m. to get in, plyometrics for a half hour or whatever,
Is it a physical feeling or a mental?
It's both.
Yeah.
It's both. Back to the other thing that, you and I talked about, I've really felt like in the last 3 to 4 months, I can feel my muscle tone fading. It just pisses me off.
Yeah.
And my strength has been okay. I've never been a really strong guy to begin with, but,
Yeah,
decent.
you must have been.
Yeah. Decent. Not probably a weakness in some ways, but decent. But man, it just pisses me off when I look in the mirror and I see not the level of of firmness.
Oh my God.
Do you accept it, or do you say, okay, changing things?
Yeah, I don't accept it. I probably don't change my diet as much as I should. I eat a lot of good stuff and I eat a lot of crap.
Right.
What I mean, when we talk about this all the time, but I have noticed as my life has become more comfortable, I have less discipline.
I just wrote that down.
I have less discipline. I used to be miserable and really disciplined. Never ate anything that I shouldn't. Never missed a workout.
Yeah.
If squat day fell on Christmas, I had to excuse myself from the family gathering to go to the gym and do my, whatever. And now that, and I'm incredibly grateful, but my life is good. I mean, I'm very happy with that, where that Bodiodo got me. I don't have the same level of discipline, and that bothers me. As I'm woofing down a box of protein bars last night, thinking, I'm not even hungry. I mean, my issue is kind of food. It's always been food, as you're staring at my gut. I see you staring at me. But
it's not true. I'm staring at your pipes, man. Those are some pipes.
Well, you have to keep everything else in order to keep your gut in perspective, So what is discipline, and how do we get it? How do I get it back? You have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think it goes back to the quote I just said, right? You pick your habits, right? But there is something to be said from the, I'm far from an expert on these kind of things that say, look, you can't go so extreme because it's emotionally draining to say I'm never going to have a carb again or never going to have a cookie again, right? That approach doesn't work, right?
Right.
So
I would agree.
Kind of that, all-in approach is actually detrimental to your health rather than
because you swing all the way one way and it's not sustainable. Yeah.
Do you ever swing off the center? You seem to be right on center all the time.
I used to a lot, and it was not healthy and not sustainable at all.
Just all or none?
There was this short-term burst of things that where to have a great accomplishment, but long-term, that never worked.
I'm probably predictably boring. never had these wild swings. I just kind of keep chopping wood.
Right, keep doing it.
Do you golf that way too? You hit the ball right down the middle of the fairway?
No, I got a slice.
But I think, my issue has always been all or none. If I'm all in, then I am all in, man.
Yeah.
And you can't, which was always kind of disruptive to family life too, because I can't eat that, or I can't go there, or I got to do this or whatever. And so moderation, which is something that I don't do particularly well, seems to be a better strategy. That 80-20 Pareto, 80% of the time I do well, maybe 20% of the time not quite so well, without the really dramatic swings that I tend to experience.
I think the thing, and I'll actually challenge you guys to join me. Just known Doug and just known you for 45 minutes, but I'll challenge you with something.
Push-up contest.
Let's wait till you hear it. is finding. I think we do, as we age, we do always have to find challenges, whether they're big or small, right? And I think that's what gives us meaning and keeps us moving forward. And it could be something as like, I'm a grandparent, but I'm going to coach my kids' little league team, right? I mean, so those
exactly.
Those challenges keep us. So my next challenge is, I had a conference call this morning. I haven't told my wife yet.
So we're announcing it to her right now.
Yeah, she's not going to listen. Is I'm going to do Kilimanjaro.
Oh, wow.
Oh, so you're going to hike Kilimanjaro.
So you're welcome to join me next June.
Oh, he's been to Africa.
Yeah.
I have not been to Africa.
So you're in.
Let's do it.
I'll run it by my wife.
There you go.
I have
what's involved in that? Just a high level. Is it a year's worth of just getting acclimated to it?
What they say is
hike?
like it's a hike, so it's not a technical climb.
It's not rope climbing.
It's not rope climbing.
There's a little scrambling.
Scrambling at the end.
Is there?
But it's cold as hell at the top, like 40 below.
There's a glacier at the top, right?
Or
some
type
of.
Like we live in Nebraska, it'll be fine, right? And
it's normal.
I mean, you go up, you hit the top, take a picture, and get your ass down,
and then run.
But it's 20,000 feet.
20,000 feet,
right?
Yeah, just a little under 20,000 feet.
So there are some physiological.
Yeah, the big thing is that they say you hike high, sleep low, hike high, sleep low, right?
Interesting,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and so, they say, look, if you're of average fitness, you can do it, right? So it's not like you need a year's worth of cross training kind of thing to do it. The challenge is, they say even the best athletes can get knocked down by the altitude, so you really don't know how you're going to respond.
Right.
I mean, like even the most fit person in the world could get knocked down, but there's about a 90% completion rate, so that's a good gamble.
Yeah.
What do you think people like you? What drives you to do something like that?
I think it's that next challenge. I mean, I did an MBA at 57.
Did you?
I mean, so like I always have to have something that I'm.
And
is it so that you push yourself out of the comfort zone?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think that's an important word, Doug, is like, I think we have to, as we age, we have to be challenged, and we have to resist the urge to be comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we got to keep moving.
And it keeps you going.
You got to keep moving.
Because
what's your
stagnant.
challenge right now, man? You got a challenge.
I'm trying to relearn golf, to be honest.
Is that what your challenge is?
That's one thing I'm trying right now. I haven't played for about 10 years, and it's amazing how you lose it.
Are you taking instruction? Or
I'm taking a few lessons.
Good.
And just taking a step at a time. But the muscle memory's there, but the physical ability seems to go. And then I think back when I used to play a lot, it was just kind of like, just hit the ball and be quiet. Yeah. And now there's so many mental things creep in, and I find that really challenging because it's not the physical, it's the mental.
The mental challenge.
With that game. So I think it's something like that. So your light doesn't get extinguished, that you just keep kind of moving forward to something.
Well, the other thing is, too, the other thing I think we all fear is dementia-related diseases like Alzheimer's, right? Like you have a day where like you can't recall names, and you start thinking like, well, wait a second here, what's wrong, kind of thing, right? And so, but the best antidote for that really is to keep your mind sharp, is to keep moving.
Yeah,
I mean the best antidote for depression, anxiety, all those kind of things, to tie it back to our overall wellness and mental health, is like just the the importance of movement to everything we do. And be really candid, you know, I travel quite a bit. It's frightening to walk through airports and see, you know, when I get on the plane, I usually get on fairly early to travel a lot, get upgraded or whatever, and sit there and just watch people come in. And it's frightening.
It is.
You know, and I'm not judging them, but like, man.
Well, I'll judge them for you.
Yeah. I will too.
I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
You're too decent a person to do that. But it is. I'll tell you what frightens me is the number of people that wear their pajamas onto the plane. What the hell's up with that? And flip-flops and stuff. Cover up those feet, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
You know?
And I love dogs.
So gross.
The frickin' airports have become a pet shop.
It is. I totally hate flying now for all of those reasons.
You look back in the 50s and even the 60s when it was suits and ties and dresses. And it was an occasion, and it was an honor to fly.
Yeah.
But you look at also the I guess degradation, how fat everybody is, and just how they treat each other in an enclosed space like that. You kind of wonder is this really what we've become?
I know. Yeah,
you know, it's a little petri dish of the whole thing.
This is what Greyhound was 20 or 30 years ago. It's become glorified bus travel.
Yeah, no,
But you know, so Dr. J, let's say, you know, we're in our early to mid 60s. We probably have a good. I hope I have another 60 years left. You know, so, but let's just say you've got 30 to 35 years, and I think each of us wants to just go out like somebody unplugs us. Versus like, you know, a 15-year slide.
Yeah.
Of people screaming at you and rolling you in rooms and stuff. You know, none of us want that.
No.
Scary.
It is scary. Yeah. And so, you know, it's the day-to-day, it's the doing the things, it's the Kilimanjaro. Do you think those things are preventative, or do you think those are things that we're doing as avoidance?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've never thought of it that way. So avoidance is a really powerful concept that most of us organize our life around, right? I mean, most of us organize our life around avoidance or escape at some level, right? We get into a situation, we realize it's adverse, so we got to get out of it, right? Or we've had an adverse experience with it before, so we have to avoid it, right? And so I think people tend to avoid situations in which they make themselves uncomfortable. And then so you get into this cycle where you've avoided a tough workout or, you know, eating right and those kind of things for so long, and now you're paying the consequences, right? Because avoidance pays off in the immediate. Makes sense?
Yeah, it does. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah, avoidance pays off in the immediate. The consequences come later, right? Which is back to why the disciplined life is so crucial for all of us, right? Not eating that extra plate of potatoes or whatever. Still having some, but not going overboard, right? The disciplined life kind of tells us, like, I'm going to accept some discomfort now for gain later. But, you know, human nature is that we tend to avoid things that are uncomfortable for us.
Without question.
You know, and so we have to kind of, so as you know, at all ages, but particularly now as we're more comfortable, you kind of think about, like, what am I avoiding here? Tough conversations, you know, tough decisions. You know, because we organize our life around avoidance and escape.
Yeah. I do think one thing that you've said and something that Mark says repeatedly, I do think you need to get out of that comfort zone. You need to find some stressors in your life, good stressors, obviously, but things that push you, that continue to push you. Because if you just plop down on the couch,
easy to do,
which is easy to do,
and it's avoidance of something,
and it is avoidance. Yeah, you're avoiding that discomfort. Mark refers to it as I don't know where I'm going, but I know how I'm going to get there, which is your quote. It's basically the habits, right? If you instill these good habits and you're willing to push yourself into this discomfort level, you're going to get where you want to go. That's the method, that's the path, the habits, for those kind of things.
Or learn something from the journey, right? Yeah. So even a bad experience, let's go to the worst experience, like everybody we know, everybody we love will die, right? And will be gone from our life. Mm-hmm. But even if you're able to take situations that were unpleasant and extract from it, what did I learn from this? Now it becomes not just a bad experience, but it becomes valuable because you were able to learn something from it, right? And so if you can keep that learner's perspective from every experience you have, then you're able to reframe that and see it in a different way that adds meaning to, because continuing to learn and grow is the other part, because some people stop doing that, right? And that's another key to aging well, is continue to learn and grow.
Yep. Without question.
Yep. I think the last couple of months I've been to a handful of funerals, dealing with loss. Not to be morbid about all this, but I'll be honest, I'm not sure if I was sad for the family or equally sad for myself.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
And standing in the line waiting to, so sorry for your loss, but I'm standing there kind of going, dang, I'm not sure I want to be here right now. Mm-hmm. Because avoiding that discussion, and yet it's like it's creeping up. It's getting closer and closer. And, does that make sense? I mean,
it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Right? I get it.
Yeah. And so you keep doing things like we're all doing, like, okay, I'm just going to fight this.
Right.
I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to eat the right stuff. I'm going to keep working out. I'm going to have a positive mental attitude. But I think the last 5 years, the connectivity amongst friends has kind of maybe died.
Yeah.
And that needs to come back. I mean,
sadly.
So what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the word connectivity, because if you look at all the studies on aging and longevity and happiness, and the key independent variable, not to get too technical here, but you got a smart audience, except for Dave's listening. Then
make some hand puppets or something.
Yeah, hand puppets. Yeah, but so all the literature will tell you, rock solid, across populations, connectivity is the thing that keeps people going. Movement and connectivity, right? So you can create these eccentric circles of contacts. Here's the stat you may or may not have heard. You guys are both really wise on this kind of stuff. Being lonely is as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Is that right?
Wow.
So think about that for a second, right? Mm-hmm. So, and to your point, there's a lot of people who are lonely.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Now, some people are very comfortable in being alone. That's a different thing.
Completely. I would agree.
But being lonely and being alone are two different things. But the impact of being lonely and isolated, and yes, it has. People don't join groups like they used to. Not making a statement about religion, but religious participation is down. So there's a connectivity there. Good, bad, or indifferent, wherever your philosophy is on that. People don't join the Eagles clubs and the Moose Club and bowling leagues and that kind of stuff. Not that it doesn't exist, but not at the same rate. So that downstream effect of connections is less than it was, right? Yeah. And instead we end up pissing back and forth on Facebook.
Exactly.
Which is horrible.
Yeah.
Which has been a contributor. And you look at the next generation and the generation after that, you wonder.
Yeah.
What'll happen to face-to-face communication. And
I know. And this is something that we've experienced in my family. My mother lived by herself into a part of her life that was difficult to be on her own.
Yep.
And so it made it much more difficult for her to get out and for her to interact.
Yep.
Those interactions became fewer and further between. And so she eventually moved into a facility. And, man, she made a lot of friends.
Yep. Oh, that's all right.
And the social aspect of that, certainly nutritionally and those kind of things, were beneficial. But I think the social aspect of it, where she has a number of friends and they all get together and they do a number of things, and they just, the presence of another human being sometimes is kind of overlooked.
It's
how
powerful.
important that is. Very powerful.
Very powerful.
It has helped her. You know, we have seen.
I didn't know that story.
We have seen her do better.
Yeah, that's
and there was
great.
a period where she wasn't doing very well, and I think in large part it had to do with. You know, I get over there once a week, and I'm fortunate that I can be over there and we chat for a couple of hours, and but I know that she has interaction other than that, which is really
and the point I'm making is, like, there's some things we can do. There's no guarantees, right? I mean, like, we don't know how we're going to end this thing, right? And we're not in control of it for a lot of different reasons. And that's not an esoteric religious statement. There's just, our bodies break down and we don't know how it's going to happen. But we can be really intentional about movement. We can be really intentional about learning and growing through our next challenge, and we can be really intentional about social connection.
Yeah. And all three of those things add up to positive movement forward.
They do.
That's the take-home message. Be intentional, I think. I love that.
Very, very,
that's
very
it.
true.
I'm out.
Well, that's the nugget that we want people to take home.
I got nothing else. Right,
You know, and those are things that you can do. All of those things you can do. You can move more. You can interact. Make that phone call. Go have coffee with that person that you haven't seen for a while.
Yeah.
Why do we fight that?
And intentionality. I like that, and I think
I do too.
I've been trying an experiment the last couple of weeks, maybe a month, just randomly, positively commenting to a stranger about something.
Giving them some positive feedback.
Yeah, like back to your 7-Eleven or the grocery store, or hey, I like your hair.
Right.
The reaction.
Right.
And for most Midwesterners, they immediately just say, "Oh, well, thanks." But I didn't have time to comb it, or those are cool shoes. I like those. Oh, well, they were on sale. Right. It's really interesting how
they can't receive the compliment well. Makes them uncomfortable.
On sale. What? But you can see there's a physical change in there, and I notice a physical, what would you call it? Like a feeling that I have walking away. Like that feels pretty good. Yeah. It's genuine. It's not fake.
Right.
But you get a little dopamine or whatever the chemical would be.
Is that what it is?
I don't know.
It is.
He's the doctor.
Oxytocin, but whatever.
Oxytocin. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's a great idea, man.
Yep.
And if everybody just did that, imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the people behind the counter at a 7-Eleven, I always try and make sure I'm really polite to them, and because those folks are in there. It's easy to look down on them, but they're actually fighting the fight. The good fight, right? The people
I totally agree.
The 20-year-old working at McDonald's, like, come on, we ought to be praising those people.
Yeah, good
man.
for you.
Like, instead, we can kind of fall into this crassness of, what the hell?
Yeah.
But those people are warriors, right?
Yeah.
Sitting with a couple of warriors,
literally.
They're the backbone.
Yeah.
That's right. Throw down the W.
We ought to do everything we can to support those folks. Some of those folks are walking 5 or 6 miles to get to work, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We don't acknowledge that enough.
I agree with you, man. And that's something I've tried to impart on my sons.
Yeah.
The importance of the lunch lady.
Yes.
And I will, to be honest with you, I try to make that effort as well. But I was renowned countrywide for being complimentary of every lunch lady in every cafeteria that I ever went into.
You just wanted more food.
I wanted more food. I mean, it wasn't totally, what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't without some self-motivation, but it doesn't take much to say thank you, or this looks great, or, how's your day?
And I think
it's important.
Here's the other thing I think, back to, kind of our topic of the day, the aging part is sometimes it takes us too long to learn those lessons. That back to where we started with regret and reflection.
Yeah.
Could have been better when I was 24 at that. I certainly could have been a hell of a lot better when I was 17 and a pain in the ass.
Yeah, no doubt.
And so now you kind of look back like, God damn it, what was I doing? What was I thinking?
Right.
And And so now, like, okay, now it's the time to kind of make up for that because you just didn't have that perspective. And you were probably doing the best you could, but man, there were some missed opportunities.
But you didn't know, you didn't think, and you didn't have maybe the right guidance, and you didn't have this or that. It's not too late, but it can come off as not being genuine too.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where you just say, well, this selfishly, it makes me feel good.
Yep.
Right.
But it does help your community.
Yeah, it helps people, and it gets back to connectivity, and you never know with friendships that might, come about from something like that. And I think the intentionality around the question on retirement is always something that bugs us. Mm-hmm. Maybe not bug, but it comes
surprises
up all the time.
Why is it that's so important to you that I retire?
And and why do you think that is? Why do people? When you get to be this age, because none of us are really slowing down. So, why do you think that is?
I think there's a merger between our professions and our sense of self-worth and what we do and that kind of thing. So there's the I think those things are merged and entangled, and so we're always a little reluctant to give up that identity. You as a venture capitalist, you as somebody who's known throughout the Midwest in terms of safety, right? So there's, that's an identity issue too, right?
Yeah. Interesting.
I think so. Most definitely.
I mean, so like we have to kind of like wrestle with that because people give us those labels and we act out of those labels in many ways, right? I mean, and that's not good or bad. It's just the way it is, right? But I think then there's that yearning question of like, will I be bored? It's not a clinical question. We all kind of deal with that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if for you, like, unless I have something really compelling to do and I get all my stuff done by noon on Saturday, like I'm bored, right? And I'm thinking like, what the hell am I going to do on Monday morning if that happens or Wednesday morning, right? I'd like to have a little bit more control over my schedule and do those kind of things. But man, I don't know if I want to look into that beast of boredom.
Right. So you're ultimately going to be like a climbing guide or something. Yeah. This little Kilimanjaro adventure is going to probably be the next.
Yeah.
But you always are looking for challenges because, I mean, some of the stuff you do at North Point has to be daily changes and, I mean, complete reflection on.
Yeah, there's a couple of challenges there, right? First of all, the addiction field is very rewarding. And I don't get involved a lot with day-to-day patient care, more of a high-level stuff, and not to be elitist or anything like that, but we have great clinicians on the ground to do all those kind of things who are forming relationships with their patients and making decisions, and the doctors and the APRNs and that kind of stuff. But you get that back to you in that when somebody's got their health back, and now they're intentional about their health, which recovery is being, let's face it, recovery is being very intentional about your health, right?
Yeah.
And it's very rewarding when you see folks. And then there's back to the challenge part. The other part of the challenge is like, hey, there's a certain group of people aren't getting our message. Like, how do we retool that?
Yeah.
How do we craft our message so everybody here has a great patient experience?
Yep.
And when you have one person who doesn't have a great patient experience, you're like, okay, well, that's not good enough, right? We want everybody who comes in the door to have a great patient experience. So that's challenging. It's kind of an intellectual game you can play with your team to never be satisfied. And then there's the business aspect. We started North Point, Nebraska from scratch at a building over at 72nd in Ontario, like no clients, no insurance contracts, no, nothing. Like, okay, how do we build this thing and get it, get it in the black, right? And healthcare is a tough business, man, because you don't have control over your pricing.
Right.
Yeah.
They get to set the price.
They set the price, right? I can't raise my price.
You decide the services, but the challenge is always there, and it's growing. But hats off to you for what you're doing. And we've got a couple minutes left here, but I want to thank you for even making the time.
Yeah, no,
this has been enlightening for me.
Yeah. Always. Yeah, man, I love it.
Yeah.
And we just recently met, through my brother. And
you got to do the Flag Day shit.
Shall we do that?
Yeah.
It is Flag Day.
It's Flag Day.
I do happen to have like a little bit of kind of a trivia.
Let's do it.
It's a quiz.
I love it. Flag Day.
everybody knows the number of stripes on the flag.
Yep.
We know the number of stars and stripes on the flag. Did you know that at one time there were actually 15? They went from 13 stripes, which signified the colonies, up to 15, and then went back to 13.
Huh.
I heard this, but I didn't know why.
Why?
Well, that's a great question. It says 5 or more states were added in 1818, and the stripes are reduced to 13. They added 2 stripes in 1794. I don't know why.
Kentucky and Ohio, probably.
Maybe. That's interesting. But this one, here's the quiz.
Okay, quiz time.
What year was the final star added to the flag, and for what state?
Hawaii, 1958.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very close, man.
Yeah,
Hawaii,
50?
1960.
60.
Excellent. Oh, that's great, man. Good for you.
I was a history major.
You didn't even have an answer.
Public education.
I should have given you my bad.
He's private school. He's big time.
My bad. I should have given you a chance to answer.
Well,
big time.
Yeah.
This is what we do at Westside. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Who was the smartest person that you sat next to? What did she put down?
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
That's right. No, I think it's. I personally, I'm a big fan of the flag. I love the flag. We have a flag flying out in front of the house today. My wife loves that. So
I like the rules. I like how it's lit up. I
do too.
You know, there are things that should be flown with it, man, and things that should not be flown with it.
Right. There's a lot of flag etiquette. I've got an entire page of that. I didn't really want to get into all of it.
But it's great.
But that is one thing that, you're not supposed to fly the flag in bad weather. So in inclement weather, it should come down. And
I didn't realize that.
It should be lit after dark. You know, you can't basically have a flag there in the dark without illumination.
Don't let it touch the ground.
And we don't have a lit flag, so I have to take it down in the evening.
Yep.
Bring it indoors.
Nice.
Don't let it touch the ground.
Very intentional.
Very intentional.
Very intentional to bring it full circle.
I'm the one that takes the dogs out at the end of the day too, so it's part of my evening routine.
There you go.
And do you wear it around your shoulders when you come in the house?
I'd kind of hold it up behind me,
Yeah.
No, man, I don't.
Dr. J, thanks.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
Really.
Great. And I think the take-home messages, I wrote these down. I love the discussion of regret and reflection, but being intentional is something that I'm gonna spend a little time thinking about today.
With everything you do. Yeah, that's great.
Without question.
Yeah,
man, get out of your comfort zone a little bit. This is why I turn the water to cold. I don't have a cold plunge like you, big time. But turning the water to cold,
it's hard.
Takes you out of your comfort because you've just had that nice warm shower.
Yeah.
Crank it over to cold, scream a little bit.
Yeah.
But it just really invigorates you.
Yep.
And then find other things during the course, this comfort crisis that we're in where, take the stairs instead of the elevator and do some of those things to just push yourself out of that comfort just a little bit. We talked about it. Park your car at the end of the parking lot rather than that first space and walk into the store. All of those kind of things. It doesn't have to be huge steps. Baby steps sometimes, right?
Yeah, and just reach out to a friend you haven't talked to for a while.
Right.
That's a great idea. Who should we reach out to?
I called a buddy of mine I haven't talked to for a while, and he answers. He goes, "What's wrong?"
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Just saying hi.
Yeah.
About what?
Right.
Yeah.
We need to
All right.
do that. It's
Thanks.
a pleasure, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good to
Thanks,
see you,
everybody.
Have a great weekend, Mark.
All right.
Okay.
And Mark.
That's right. See
All
you
right, guys.
All right.
Talk to you next time.
Bye.